All right, folks, this next speaker, I'm very proud to be able to bring up to the mic here. No pun intended, but it is Mike Coleman. I'm going to tell you what, this young man came on board about 6-7 months ago, and you talk about hit the ground running. He hit the ground running. He has made a lot of nice changes in doing things, forward thinking. It's a real pleasure to have Mike on board as the Secretary-Treasurer of this great national union. Mike, come on up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just want to quickly thank Mike for putting one resolution between me and President Saunders. Thank you. Nice act to follow. But I want to welcome everybody. Thank you very much for coming here today. This is a great membership meeting. It's great to see senior workers and young workers alike. It's an honor to be here with you today. A lot of work goes into this, as I found out in the last few months. I want to take the time. I hope everybody's enjoying themselves. I mean, we've had some good dinners and good events, but I want to thank the national and office staff first and foremost. I can't name them all because a lot of people do a lot of work behind the scenes for this, but I do want to bring out and specifically mention George Mnugian. Is George in the house? George isn't here? Well, I'll tell you what, George, I've been kind of hip to hip with George for quite a while the last few months, and especially this last week. I've learned a lot from George. He put most of this on, and I want to just say give a round of applause to all of staff and George Mnugian, please. By the way, I did find out working with George that he has quite a few years as a utility worker. He started as a utility worker the same year that I was born, so for what it's worth. But 2015, I can describe in one word, and it's transition. As Mike mentioned, Gary Ruffner retired effective December 31st, and the executive committee and the executive board elected me to fulfill that unexpired term. And it's an honor and it's a privilege, and I really appreciate the support and confidence that this group here has put in me. It's quite a challenge, I'll be honest with you. Coming into DC, starting January 1st, transitioning out of the local and into the national quite a bit. But I do also want to give great thanks to Gary Ruffner. Gary did a lot of transition work with us. He stayed on in January, a couple months, helping us out with some projects that he had still going, but he was a good help to me. More importantly, he has a lot of years in this position, 15 years as your National Secretary-Treasurer, and I think we should give Gary Ruffner a round of applause. I'm going to talk about the transition in a bit, but I want to step back on some convention conversation that I've noticed and has resonated. There's been three basic themes that I'm kind of capturing here. One is mentoring, one is opportunity, and one is fairness. And some of the items I'm going to share with you, some are personal, but I think there's success stories for this national as well. If you want to talk about opportunity, I started as a gas worker 25 years ago in Cleveland, Ohio, and I started as a janitor and rose to be president of my local union. And if you want to talk about opportunity, there was a lot of steps in between, not only in classifications for job negotiation, but also union leadership positions. But young workers, take note, because there are a lot of steps in between. And I want to give you one example. We talk about mentors. I had one mentor that, we've had several in our lives. Every one of us, I think, up here can say that honestly, but there's a few that really, really stand out. And some in the room will know his name is Ron Plum. He was not a union officer. He was actually a shop representative in Cleveland, Ohio. But he was a 50-something shop representative. I was a 20-something guy coming up, a little brash, a lot of passion, if you will. But he took the time to spend with me and teach me he taught me how to be a union representative, to be honest with you. I ended up being his steward, but he taught me sacrifice, and that's what he did as a union representative. But he also taught me patience, because he actually had the patience to spend the time with me. But on the flip side, I had to take the time to listen to him. And we would meet many times, and it wasn't paid time, it wasn't at work, it wasn't on union time. We spent a lot of time off the clock, if you will, although I will say a lot of it for some of the senior members know Stopping up is what we used to call it when you go to the bar after work. We did a lot of training at the bar. But he was a great mentor, and he couldn't make it here today. He's up in the years a little bit and couldn't do the travel, but there's a lot of Ron Plums out there, and I'm sure there's some in this room, but he took the time to reach back and see something in me, and I would ask everybody in this room, you hear the theme here today, reach back in your own locals. I'm sure there's somebody that's that 20-something brash kid, you may be in your 40s, 50s, they're willing to listen. There is one thing that he did, it was kind of funny because I was kind of a little wild, crazy guy with a lot of passion, but he said, kid, you're doing a great job, but you got to change your demeanor. And I said, what the hell does that mean? I didn't know what demeanor meant. He said, you're going in there, you're a little crazy. But yeah, I was a little crazy, but he taught me patience. He taught me how to handle an investigative meeting and how to say F you without saying F you at a meeting. But I'm going to fast forward a little bit. In 2003 was a very momentous moment for local G555. At the time, we were 555. We were with the Service Employees International Union, SEIU. SEIU is a great organization, but I'll be honest with you, utility workers is not necessarily their forte. I'll give you an example. A convention this size, we might be represented in the back right row. And the great leadership of the Utility Workers Union as well as the SEIU at the time acknowledged that, and we ended up affiliating from SEIU to the utility workers in 2003. And I'm proud to be the one that actually witnessed the vote. But there was 5 of us that came aboard. And some of them are here today. We've got 18007 out of Chicago. We've got 686 out of Philadelphia, Keith Holmes local. We had 69 down in West Virginia and back to 666 in West Virginia. We were the gas workers local. All of us came over at the same time. And I could tell you what a difference in representation and mentoring and training, night and day. Again, SEIU, great organization. Utility workers was not their forte. But one of the things that stuck out when we came to Utility Workers Union, we didn't know anybody. It was kind of a leap, if you will, to go to some of these meetings. But the very first regional caucus, and again, I say there's many, many people that you'll remember, but the one I remember most when we first came to Utility Workers Union, and he's no longer with us, but his name is Bob Chet. Very big man, president of Local 270 back in the day. He welcomed us with open arms and brought us in. We ended up being the sister local of 270 in Cleveland, Ohio. We kind of had the same footprint, but he took the time to meet with us as a local, taught us utility worker way, taught us how things kind of went. I learned more about contracts and arbitrations from that man, and I want to give him credit. Unfortunately, Bob passed away in 2010, but he lives on in G555, and really in me personally, to be honest with you. And you can take that back, Frank, 270 as well. But something else, there's another very interesting time. I see life as in parallel sometimes. Well, in 2006 is when President Langford became president of the National Utility Workers Union. That same year, I became president of local G555. And what really surprised me was the accessibility, and if you want to talk about a mentor, Mike would take a lot of my calls, and he accepted creative different ideas. We were really thinking a lot of stuff out of the box. We walked right into our first contract in 2006, but not only accepting creative ideas, but nurturing those creative ideas. And if he couldn't give you the answer, he put you in the right direction, and that's one of the things I really want to hope everybody takes away from here. When I became on the board here in 2006, everybody up here, we have an unwritten code. It's never been said out loud that I know of. We don't email people. We don't call somebody, wait for a week. If anybody up here calls you or I call you or vice versa, we respond that day. And I think that's just the culture of the utility workers, and I think it's a credit to the leadership that Mike has put forward. So know that when you need some help, this union is accessible. Now, yesterday we were at the Women's Caucus, and sometimes you hear negatives, you hear positive, but you've heard Mike Langford say many times, share the good news, share the successes, and hopefully it's contagious. Well, one of the things I heard yesterday that resonated with me was fairness, and we were talking about women and clerical and non-traditional jobs. One of the first grievances that I was successful with in 2003 when we came to utility workers, we had a group of women in our clerical group that were not paid according to scale. And they could not get anybody to hear their issues. And all we did was say, you know what? Let's sit them down, let's find out what the issues are. And they went way back, many, many years where they missed merit raises and progression, et cetera. And I am proud to tell you, we sat there and we did exactly what Valerie King mentioned. Stick to that issue. Make sure that you don't come in with 1,000 issues. Stick to that issue. We won a grievance that paid dozens of women back pay and got them to the scale they're supposed to be. So when you talk about fairness, there are success stories, but somebody has to listen. And then I'm going to go 10 years forward now when we talk about women's issues, and I know a lot of people were there. I was really glad to see on the app, we had 130 to 150 people voting. It was a good participation. But we all know we're running into with call centers. 555G has a lot of call center employees. And you know it's easy to click that switch and move that work elsewhere. Well, we recognize that. We put core groups together. We changed. They're no longer taking inbound calls. Our call center is now called the Integrated Service Center. They're making outbound calls. Anything has to do with that customer, we're instigating it. And these jobs have now become high-skilled, high-paying jobs. And what we did is we put women in there. They became the subject matter experts. And now some of those jobs can actually make more money than some of the physical jobs. So there are some success stories out there, and I hope to sit back down with you, Valerie, and share some of those. But that's the fairness piece, so. Transition, I leave the local with a heavy heart, to be honest with you. I've done a lot of work with local G555. We've had a lot of successes. The local's in the strongest position it's ever been. I can proudly say we grew the membership. We increased our union density. We merged 3 locals into one contract in Ohio. Talk about leverage, that's what it's all about. Instead of 3 separate contracts, it was beneficial to the 2 smaller locals, and the larger local succeeded as well. We added high-skilled jobs. We went out proactively for the fracking industry. We were 2 years ahead of it for Southern Ohio. We're not doing the fracking, but we're doing the measurement. We're doing the distribution. We're doing the pigging. For those that are in the gas world know what pigging is. A lot of jobs were created, but you got to plant those seeds. You got to cultivate them. But very, very proud of that. And what I'm really proud of, we've successfully negotiated many contracts, several through the worst economic times we had, but the last 2 we actually did early. 1 year in advance. We didn't need to take the strike votes. We didn't need to walk up to the lines, which I know many of you here have with lockouts and so forth. But most importantly, we preserve defined pension benefits for all of our employees. We do not have any cutoffs in G555, and that's hard to do in today's world. You've heard a lot about P4A, and I'm going to transition out of G555 in a minute, so be patient. I appreciate it. Thanks, Pat. But the P4A is very interesting, and you do have to have the seat at the table. What we did the last several years, we partnered with Dominion, which is our employee for the safety training program. And before we partnered with them, you know, they were kind of dictating, and there wasn't really excitement about the program, and we had a lot of issues. We partnered with them starting in about 2009, 2010, and equal participation. We had the same amount of people at the table that they did. In fact, most times we had more. But proud to say we won the AGA, the American Gas Association Award, 2 years in a row, in 2014 and 2015. And what was interesting is in 2014, they invited us to G555 leadership to do the presentation at the AGA conference. We were in a room just like this, and I got to ask the question, how many in here are union members? And I was the only one, which was very interesting. But they wanted to hear our presentation. And so we did that with the vice president of East Ohio Gas at the time. And because of what we've done there, we've opened the door now for our union intern program. They want to sit down and have the dialogue on P4A, Mike. That's coming very soon. So. What about the DC office? It's not sexy stuff, I hate to say it, but it's good stuff. We are jumping in. It's been an interesting year. I take very seriously my first and foremost job is fiscal responsibility. As Mike said, we're doing a lot. We're reviewing all income and expense policies. Not exciting stuff, but you'd be surprised. There's a lot of work there. We're reviewing and updating administration policies. We're looking to streamline, look for every efficiency and best practice we have. I've been meeting with other national unions as well as with the AFL-CIO to see what we can do. What I can tell you is all of these challenges, we're doing with the full support. President Langford has given me full support, as well as the executive committee and executive board. A lot of changes. I'm sure Mike's probably sick of hearing my phone ring because we're talking about stuff on a daily basis, but it's necessary. You know, you can't stay stagnant. We're looking to capitalize on modern technology. You've seen it with a little bit with the convention app. Hopefully everybody likes the convention app. But we're implementing new payroll systems. We've implemented electronic data security systems. Again, not warm and fuzzy stuff, but we're on the cloud. Hope it don't rain, you know, the cloud that's out there. But it's necessary, it's important, and it's moving forward. It's, you know, working towards the next generation, if you will. We're preparing leadership training for treasurers and local leaders. It's not just the treasurers that need training. We're looking to come out here in the next year or so with a new program for everybody in this room, because we have to keep on top of things. We're looking at our grants. You know, we have several grants. Some are through P4A and some are administered out of the national office. We're looking to consolidate that. It's not something you would see, but it saves us money and it's efficient. So our goal, quickly to be clear, is to find ways to work more efficiently and prepare ourselves for the future of this unit. So I thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the convention.